maybe the Canadians were bringing it up, and maybe the media was bringing it up at the same time. It wasn't just the President of the United States with his tweet. It was 36 hours of nonstop media coverage and Canadians talking about this is proving our sovereignty.
I'll be honest, I'm a little bit shocked that CBC actually aired this, but also very happy that they did because, wow, did it ever need to be heard. I also never thought I'd see the day where NDP Nenshi in particular out of Alberta would agree with Pierre Poilievre and slam Mark Carney for his incompetence. We're going to be talking about that a lot today, all of the incompetence. There's a lot of it. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, share, like, comment your thoughts down below. Plus, the Auditor General had a meeting today where she really tore in to those darn Liberals not following the rules. All that and more coming up on Over Opinionated.
We are going to make big savings. We will stand here before you in 1 year's time and show you the excessive costs that we've taken out of local government. And at a national level, if we win the next election, we will scrap net zero, something that is costing the Exchequer an extraordinary £40 billion plus every year. There will be no more asylum hotels or houses of multiple occupancy. People who come here illegally across the channel or on the back of lorries will not be allowed to stay. We will scrap the DEI agenda, which is costing the taxpayer up to £7 billion a year throughout the public sector. So yes, I do accept that these proposals, especially the one of lifting to £20,000 the level at which people start paying tax, I accept that it's expensive, but I genuinely believe that we can pay for it because we're not ideologically tied to the same ideas upon which we believe the Conservative and Labour governments have gone so wrong over the course of the last few years.
That speech was given by Nigel Farage, and there's a lot of people who are not really the craziest fans of him, saying that, you know, he's a liar, he has empty promises, what is he going to do? He's never going to win. But at the end of the day, I think it's a clear point that even Keir Starmer very recently said kind of some pretty similar things, because the mass immigration that was allowed, the insanity with ESG and DEI has just destroyed their economy, and it has destroyed their culture through and through. And it has really baffled me how Mark Carney and the Liberals in Canada keep saying that we want to be closer to Europe, which makes no sense to me because Europe as a whole, when it comes to their economy, their immigration, all of this, the crime, all of the same things that we're struggling with here in Canada, in many sectors are worse or similar to exactly what we are facing here. And I don't understand the notion that you think it's a good idea to partner yourself more closely with people who are doing worse than you. That's not really how you build success. You become the company you keep, so pick your company very wisely. Something that clearly Mark Carney has absolutely not done, arguably worse than Justin Trudeau when it comes to picking his ministers. So on the topic of mass immigration, here's what they had to say about it.
Did the 10,000 people who were granted a fraudulent acceptance letter last year come to Canada?
Mr. Chair, students that were granted letters fraudulently did not come to Canada.
Now that is just fascinating because posted on June 10th, 2025 by Rachel Watts on CBC News. By the way, June 10th is today. She came to Canada for university, but she'd never been accepted. The scam cost her $7,000. 2 years later, victims speak out with hope that the authorities can do more. And in this article, it goes to say that this individual did indeed land in Montreal after leaving from Africa, West Africa, and then she realized that it was all a scam. She had not been accepted into university. She did not have a scholarship. Her immigration papers were fraudulent and based on a falsified acceptance letter. She says, "My dream turned into a nightmare." Now, that individual, by all accounts, it appears that she did go back home to West Africa and she still wants to come to Canada with no luck there. But there's another story in that same article as well with somebody who definitely appears to be living in Canada still. She was directed to local authorities. She was directed to the local embassy. It's not like she was just put on a plane and turned around. Also, according to the Economic Times here, the IRCC flagged over 10,000 student acceptance letters that were potentially fraudulent in 2024. A total of 500,000 applications were reviewed, with 93% of the letters that were verified as genuine, 2% deemed fraudulent, and 1% associated with canceled student admissions. And this is also interesting because it's the exploitation of international students, not at all by Canada, but we have Jenny Kwan, who's an immigration critic for Canada's New Democratic Party, called the revelations extremely alarming and urged the government to address both fraudulent actors and potential complicity by educational institutions, saying, and I quote, "Canada has a responsibility to ensure that international students who have been defrauded are protected." This might be unpopular or very popular, and I say this with all due respect to people who have had their lives totally upended by having to go through something like this, where you essentially give everything that you have. In some cases, I was reading stories of people who sold their house just to pay for this fake admission, to pay for this fake immigration that they didn't know was fake. So I certainly have a lot of compassion and sympathy for them there. But at the end of the day, it's not the government's responsibility to make sure that you're taken care of if something turns out to be a scam, because there's a very easy way to ensure that things are real, and that is to go through the official channels, not somebody who contacted you on Facebook Messenger saying that they can help you.
There's a lot to unpack here. There are 500,000 people as of December that should have been removed from Canada. How many were removed?
The Honourable Minister.
So, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You need to contextualize the numbers when we present them in this House. There's facts.
You still have time, Minister. You have a few seconds.
Mr. Chair, appreciate that. CBSA and Public Safety Minister, he was here, I believe, Thursday, and he's in charge.
How many of the 500,000 people that are not supposed to be in Canada have been removed? Just the number.
Minister.
So thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Again, people whose visas expires or who are here that should not be here need to leave. If they do not, that is a CBSA.
Remember.
But here's the thing. The minister cannot set levels if she doesn't know how many people have left. So it is her job. So I need to know how many people of that 500,000 has left. How about this? Does she even know? Does she have any clue?
Minister.
So, again, Mr. Chair, my role here tonight is not to talk about people leaving and people that are here that have visas expired and so on. In terms of how many have left, that is completely a CBSA function, and the public safety takes care of it.
The Honourable Member.
Canadians literally pay her $100,000 top-up and give her a car to know these numbers. How many of the 500,000 people that were supposed to leave in December actually left? This is pretty simple. Like, how many? Does she know?
I won't make you listen to the rest of that, but just so you know, she still did not answer the question. And it makes you wonder, is it that she doesn't know the answer, in which case she absolutely should not have that portfolio? Or is it that she knows the answer and it's higher and she doesn't want people to know, so she's trying to evade it?
According to the Liberal Party's website, the government's, and I quote, set a mandatory target that all new light-duty cars and passenger truck sales be zero emissions by 2035, end quote. Is this statement correct?
Honourable Minister.
We do have in place a regulation that sets consistently increasing targets for EV sales going to 100%. And there are also flexibilities built within that regulation that if we wanted to have a larger conversation about, we could speak about.
The Honourable Member.
Government's regulations prohibit the sale of new, fully gas-powered cars in Canada after 2035. Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Canada strong and free, they say. Well, only free to make the decisions that we want you to make. And it really is just disgusting to me how all of these EV sectors, number one, Mark Carney is sitting there saying, oh, we're going to do all this stuff. It's going to leapfrog us. How many more plants need to close? How many more plants only stay afloat due to tax dollar funded federal subsidies? The reason why those industries exist in Canada is not due to public demand, is not due to success. It is due to government mandates. It is due to government subsidies. So we now have the federal government getting involved in car manufacturing, because that's really what that entails, because those industries wouldn't exist if it weren't for those government handouts. And then we also have them getting involved in housing. What does that slope look like to you? Why do you think they want to move us in that direction? Seems kind of odd, doesn't it? And if you want a couple of other indicators to that, this is posted by Mark Nixon, lovely gentleman, by the way, who shows that Canada's exports cratered by $7.1 billion in 1 month. That's not a typo. It's the biggest drop in years. If exports collapse this fast, how long before the layoffs begin? Weeks? Months? The recession won't be announced. It will be felt.
But it sounds like the Prime Minister is intent on reducing the integration or slowing the integration, becoming more self-reliant domestically and more engaged with Europe and away from the United States.
Like I said, we'll compete for every dollar. We build fantastic products. We're a tough competitor. A lot of our stuff is interchangeable and interoperable with our friends to the north. There's a cost to doing that, but that's a decision the Prime Minister and the Canadian government will make. All I can say is that we want to do business with Canada. We will compete for that business, and ultimately Canada will make the decision as to what products they will buy.
And then we also have this lovely piece of data as well, and this is a little bit older. It's from 2024. I've showed it on the show before, but it is Canada's per capita economic growth over the last 10 years. Look at every other country and look at Canada at 0.5% compared to the US at 20.7%. You know what the US has that Canada doesn't? It really does promote industries. Even under the Biden administration, it was substantially better than what we've had with Trudeau. Why? Because Trudeau's government, Mark Carney's government, the Liberal Party of Canada is not liberal at all. They're neoliberal, bordering on socialism, perhaps a little bit of Marxism dipped in there as well, where they don't actually care about the Canadian economy at all. They just care about staying in power. And what's the best way to keep people in power? It's probably if you make them absolutely dependent on you, isn't it?
But the words were still very aggressive in terms of him wanting to expropriate some of our economic success.
And I've heard fairly aggressive terms from Canadians coming back at the U.S. saying we're going to develop other customers, we're going to diversify, we're not going to buy as much.
By necessity, isn't it? Because we're living up to a trade agreement this president signed, and now here we are seeking something else, and there's real doubts about whether that would even be lived up to for the course of whatever it is.
American, we will live up. I mean, for the 50 years or 75 years of NATO, all right, there's been one country that has consistently been supporting NATO. That happens to be the United States of America. We are a reliable ally, a trusted ally, and we're okay. But let's wait and see what an agreement looks like. Okay, there's a lot of rhetoric potentially on both sides, but let's see exactly when there's an agreement. I'll come back and we'll talk to you about it again. Okay, we will both be saying, "Oh man, I maybe didn't anticipate this. This actually could be pretty good for both countries."
Well, do you understand?
Because I expect what Carney is doing, and when I'm listening to Carney, okay, what I expect, I see him negotiating for the best interest of Canada.
Sure.
And when he presents a deal, to the Canadian people and to Parliament, all right, he's got to be able to make a credible case that this is good for Canada. Which is the same thing that our president has to do when he comes back to Congress and he comes back to the American people. This is a good deal for America, and this is how it's going to bring us more prosperity. tells me that, at the end of the day, this has to be a win-win.
But you can understand the skepticism, can't you, Ambassador, on this side of the border? Because, the 51st state stuff, and I know you said that was gone away, but then the president put it out on social media. If you join, you get Golden Dome for free.
Let's get it clarified. I said it was a way unless the president or Carney decided to bring it up. And coincidentally, I think you could make a credible case that as the president brought it up, maybe the Canadians were bringing it up, and maybe the media was bringing it up at the same time. It wasn't just the president of the United States with his tweet. It was 36 hours of nonstop media coverage and Canadians talking about, this is proving our sovereignty. And it's kind of like you're thumping the president in the chest for 36 hours, and you shouldn't be.
Every
like
time
I said,
he does it, it moves markets, it moves money, like it costs jobs. I mean, these sectors are either sitting on money or downsizing their capacity because of they're afraid.
We're going through a transition. Okay, $2 trillion deficits on an annual basis. Were not sustainable for the United States of America. The president is acting in the interest of the American people by addressing our fiscal house and putting that in order. Millions of people coming across our border, undocumented, untracked, not even knowing it was not sustainable. And so, yes, the president is tackling that issue.
And what do you think? Do you think that our prime minister is tackling that issue? Do you think that he is doing things in the best interest of Canadians? Do you really believe that?
Or CMHC, supported by Housing Infrastructure and Communities Canada, is mandated to transform surplus federal office properties into affordable housing through the Federal Lands Initiatives. The audit found that CMHC was on track to meet the initiative's 2027-2028 target to secure commitments to build 4,000 new housing units. However, this target is based only on commitments, and the audit found that only 49% of the new units will be ready for occupancy by 2027-28. The federal government has been slow to reduce office space and cut costs to support hybrid work and to convert surplus properties into affordable housing. Public Services and Procurement Canada and federal tenants need to accelerate their efforts to reduce office space they occupy and contribute to increasing stock for housing that is sustainable, accessible, and affordable.
The Auditor General had a press conference today going through some of the issues with the ArriveCan app, as well as a few other things. And man, does she ever brilliantly just say the words corruption without actually saying it.
Ask you about GC Strategies. Did your investigation uncover any wrongdoing on the part of GC Strategies, or did these issues boil down to essentially poor contract management on the part of the government?
So I think it's important to know that my mandate doesn't allow me to go look and audit GC Strategies. I can't audit private organizations. I can only look at what the public service has done. And what we found here is that public servants were not applying procurement rules that at times are very clear. This echoed findings that I had in my previous audit on ArriveCan, as well as a previous audit on professional services that focused in on McKinsey & Company. I said it back then, and I'll repeat it now. I have no reason to believe that this is unique to two vendors. And that's why I believe the government needs to take a step back and look at why this behavior is happening. And is it that there are just too many rules that just keep getting added on audit after audit so that folks don't understand all of the rules? Or are people trying to go around them to make the process faster? Either way, the rules are meant to support transparency and accountability, and I would expect that those basic elements are followed by public servants.
Given the investigations you've done so far on McKinsey and GC Strategies, do you have a sense at this point of how widespread these issues are in the public service?
Well, I can only speak to those two elements, and in both cases, the vendors represented a really small percentage of what was spent on professional services contracts by the federal government. But in the McKinsey work, we had looked at 10 Crown corporations and 10 departments. In this audit, there's 31 federal organizations, including 1 Crown and departments. And we found issues in almost every contract that we looked at, which tells me that there's no reason to believe It's limited to these two. And it's time for the public service to go back to the basics in understanding procurement rules and why they should be followed.
Kim Jong-Carney and the Liberals and all of his world-renowned banking expertise are really going to help you by doing nothing. By doing absolutely nothing, by awarding more contracts to their friends, by doing things and misleading you in the way that they're written to make it sound like they're getting something done when they aren't, and then getting called out like this. I understand that the Auditor General here and a lot of those issues were in the Trudeau era. But having said that, Mark Carney was the economic advisor for the Trudeau government. So I'm not fully marking him off as scot-free. And moreover, his entire cabinet, over 50% of his cabinet, is the exact same people as the Trudeau government. So every single one of them is a part of this. They were a part of those hearings and discussions and approvals. They know exactly what they're doing. They are not stupid. They are doing this with intent. There was a plan at the end of the day. And I think a lot of us are very, very eyes open wide to what that plan actually is. And to solidify that that feeling, that thought that you may have just a little bit more, here's somebody I never in my life thought would agree with Pierre Poilievre, Nenshi. He actually agreed with him that the way Mark Carney is doing things right now is absolutely awful, and it's not going to get anything done.
I wanted to start off on the point where Mr. Poilievre left off. Essentially, he's saying that it just needs to get done. Consensus can't be a precondition. Do you believe consensus is necessary?
No, I think Mr. Poilievre is right on this one. You know, when I think about the work we did to get the Trans Mountain expansion built, it required a lot of work. And I'll remind folks that happened with the New Democrat government in place in Alberta, with the federal government. And I have to say, over the objections of the Premier of British Columbia at the time. It was the right thing to do. It's propping up our economy right now in the face of Trump tariffs. And so I'm not suggesting you run roughshod over people. You have to have consultation with Indigenous groups, with people, landowners across the way. But eventually you have to make a decision. And sometimes consensus can be an excuse to not get anything done.
It certainly looks to me like we are just into another era of making excuses to not get anything done, having scapegoats so that you don't have to take the blame. And the worst part is the people who are supposed to punish this behavior are the same ones who are doing it and the same ones who are signing the contracts. So that's just awesome. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like, comment your thoughts down below. Share the video as well to help more people open their gosh darn eyes already. And I will talk to you tomorrow.